And a very good evening to you all. Today I look like an Easter egg. My hair's around the back, guys. I have got hair. Anyway, I'm all a bluster. You're lucky I even got here. I hope Duncan comes in and calms me because it's been a kerfuffle. In the past hour, since I like to have an hour in order to prepare and everything, and the last hour has been, we've had cat fights, we've had my daughter phoning in the middle of it. Hi mum, just thought I'd call for a chat. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, I'm going live. Anyway, how are you all? I hope you're all well. It's nearly spring. Oh, thank God for that. Do any of you suffer with, like, what's it called, seasonal depression, when the weather's really bad and it just makes you really bad? Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I turn into a hermit. I stay in, I hibernate, I get creative, and yeah, just me and the cats, and I might see the kids every so often. Anyway, it's great to see you all in here. I can see we've got a full house in here tonight. I like that. First person to speak is Red Sauce. Hey, I hope you're well. We'll need to keep my eyes on the clock so I don't miss this. Okay, yes, you don't want to miss anything. And we don't want to miss our dunks. So here he is with his cup of tea. Hey, dunks.
Jan, I caught some of your intro, not all of it. Um, I am very, very wary of March as a month. I feel a little bit apprehensive when people are like, spring is here, spring is here. My experience of March is that it can be as wintry as any month. It has a habit of kicking you in the backside in the middle or towards the end of the month. You know what I mean? So yeah, I appreciate is everyone feeling spring-like? I'm not yet. No, no, not me. Two polo shirts as always throughout March.
Do you know what, Dunks? I was thinking if I had polo shirts, I would have had a couple on today as well. We got to stick together, love. You know. It does make me laugh, but hey, I like to say hello to the first few people that have come in. So let me carry on with that. We've got somebody called David Bentley who's in the house from Manila. Wow, yeah. Nice to see you, David. We've also got Angela, who's from New Zealand. Love that for us. Somebody from across the pond. We've also got Amanda, who's one of my wonderful mods. As I always say, thank you so much, guys. You moderators are brilliant. I really don't need to worry about what's going on in the chat. Because you're so good at your job. We've also got Pinky Pup. We've got somebody called just Shh, who says, I've not caught a live here before, but regular attender from Dunks, Wax and Mama D. Hope you're all good. From Shiv. Okay, yeah, I think we are all good, aren't we, Dunks? How are you feeling?
Yeah, all good, all good. I mean, busy week. Um, I did appreciate what I read, what you did, your Looking Back series. One or two things there, and this is why looking back is so important, that I don't think I'd forgotten. I just didn't know about, and we'll probably get into that with tonight's discussion. But yeah, I've been going through a lot of stuff. I got a lot coming up, so yeah, busy but productive, I think.
That's the main thing. As long as it's productive, I'm a happy bunny. So, right. Shall we start with the questions first and then move on? I wanted to check the email again and I didn't get round to it. I had the daughter on the phone saying, so mother, you do realise that it's Mother's Day very soon. So what would you like to do? Would you like us all to get together and we'll all go out for a meal like we normally do? Or would you like to do this? And I'm like, I don't care, I'm going live. Just get off the phone. So anyway, that's why I'm all of a zither at the moment. So let's start with the questions. These are the questions from last week, actually, that we didn't get round to asking. So let's start. We're focusing on the Dutch dogs. Okay, so question number one is, were the Dutch dogs capable of scrambling over rocks and cactus patches in order to get to where Jay fell? I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the work that search dogs do. I know what cadaver dogs do. I don't think I'm that sort of educated on them in an environment like Tenerife. But let's talk to somebody who is actually boots on the ground in Tenerife and see what he has to say about the possibility of the dogs actually being able to scramble over that terrain.
Yeah, after we go through this bit, I'm going to throw it back to you, Jan, and maybe we can speculate on what the Dutch team actually did there. What did they do? What did they achieve? But this initial question, odd though it may seem, I'm going to start off agreeing with something that Chris Pennington said. And he said regarding dogs, they're not a solution, they are a tool. Now, in the sense that the dogs didn't find Jay's trail, then you have to ask, where did the tool not work? We still don't have an explanation of that. Where he's right is that dogs cannot go everywhere that humans can. Neither can horses. A lot of animals cannot just go through that thick vegetation, and they can't, scale sheer climbs and that. So my impression down there was I really can't see how any dogs, and you've got the dog on the lead, on the leash going down there. I don't see how they would have been able to get to a lot of parts of that ravine, the thick vegetation and the sheer slopes. Um, and this bothered me because when you look back on the photos, I think there's only one or two, they seem to be on that wide track, you know? And then you see the one with the dogs looking over the edge, could be looking at anything, and I think that's it. From then on, they claim, and maybe we saw some drone footage, but I'm quite worried now that my theory now is, Jan, no one actually got beyond the end of that path. We've got Crispy and Luggy showing us what a drone saw, and a few vids, but it looks to me like it's about 200 meters beyond the end of that path. So I don't think, I'm going to say it, I don't think the Dutch got very close either. I'm going to be a bit controversial. I think they might have claimed they did, and I don't think they did. But I don't want to slag them off because they seem like fairly nice people. I mean, they're helpers and all that. But what do you think? What do you think, Jan? Is there a little bit of exaggeration and make believe going on with what they say they did?
It's kind of worrying when you consider, I mean, we've learned more so on this case than anything else that I've ever covered, that you cannot believe mainstream media. And I think, the picture that I remember of the dog looking over seemed more
Hmm.
like a sort of promotional picture. Like, this is what our dogs would do, in rough terrain. They'd just be looking down. If they see something, they're sort of, bark or whatever it is they do. So, yeah, I mean, as you say, how do we know that it was actually in that part of where Jay was, or actually whether it was actually that case? We just don't know. So I've highlighted what Vid has said. Hi Vid, hope you're well. I think the dog photo provided had a lot of foliage, whereas the cadaver bag photo seems to have none. Yeah, I mean, that's that goes down to inconsistency again, doesn't it? Are you talking about the one where the dog is looking over the cliff? Because it does actually look like the dog is looking over the cliff. And it's a shame, Dunks, because when you were in Tenerife, I know you were hovering over, somewhere where you shouldn't have been, where I'm sure Mrs. Smith was biting her nails down. Just don't do it, Dunks. but we couldn't actually see exactly where you were. As regards like to the drop, I know that you did say there was a drop. So do you think the dogs could have got as far as you did, even Dunks?
Absolutely not, because there are parts where you have to scramble over a fairly high rock. Um, I mean, I don't know how to put this, but if you watch a cat jump up something and a dog jump up something, they're completely different. A dog will often put its front paws up, and it might, it thinks about it. Can I get up there? That's why I raised this question. That was my thought. But I was on the left flank, which gives you a better view. And I mean, humans can get up, quite high and look down. But as I was going there, I was thinking, I don't know how a dog would do all this. Again, I know they're very good, but from what I read with this Dutch dog team, they do a lot of that. When there's a natural disaster and the dog's going in amongst the rubble to sniff out where the missing child is. I'm not sure they have done a lot of this extreme terrain type stuff. I don't want to say that the dog couldn't have got there, but I'm having my doubts. I'm having my doubts. When I say couldn't have got there, couldn't have got to the point where Jay fell. We got 2 points. We got where Jay landed, and you're right. That photo that we've been shown looks like anyone could walk down there. That's quite a barren patch, a few bushes here and there. That should be no problem at all. But it's the in between bit where we see, Chris exhausted going through this lower point, this thick vegetation. It's on the way there. I think a dog would find it very, very hard to get to. But it also made me think maybe that's why the Guardia Civil also may have lied about how they were using their dogs. You know what I mean? Rather than saying, well, our dogs can't find anything because they can't actually get anywhere, they kind of gave us this, the dogs are out there, they can't find a trail, they can't find a track. I don't know, Jan. I have a bad feeling about this. I have a feeling that both of them, Dutch dogs and Guardia Civil dogs and Madrid dogs, all three, I just don't think they could get to everywhere down there now. Which I don't know. If that's the case, that's fine. But then it leaves us with a lot of people lying or pretending, they did something they didn't do. That's the bad feeling I get here.
Okay, so there's two comments I want to pick up on. So Paul, hi Paul, has put, I'm sure the dogs would be capable of doing this type of work as they would be heavily trained to do so. The Dutch can be quite thorough. Okay, all right. And then we've got someone called Jay Smith. Hi, hope you're well. If the dog was over the ravine, it would have got a scent of anybody. Yes. And have we not been told that none of the dogs involved ever got a scent of Jay Slater, which seems mighty strange to me. In one of the videos that I put out this week, it was of Debbie saying that it sounds as if as soon as she got to Tenerife, she immediately went to the apartment that Jay was staying with Brad. In which case, did she think then, right, well, I've ordered the dog team to come in. Let me grab some of Jay's things so that I can give them to the dog team. Why is none of this discussed? None of this is... I must calm myself. None of this is ever explained. And when you listen, one of the reasons why I've been doing these shorts, and please guys, have a look at these shorts because I'm basically just putting up Debbie's words. Okay, and you can see the inconsistencies and the huge gaps in her story. That's why I'm doing it. So getting back to the dog thing, wouldn't you have thought, Duncan, one, she wouldn't have gone straight to the apartment. What was the point in going to the apartment when she knew that Jay wasn't there? And two, wouldn't she have thought, right, well, if I'm going back to the apartment, I'll get his stuff for the sniffer dogs? What are your thoughts on that, Dunks?
I don't have too many thoughts on it, but I mean, what I'm going to agree with you on is we just don't know any of this. There was never any explanation of it. I would have thought if Debbie wanted to be, transparent and keep us up to date on all this, she would have explained that she went there to get some of Jay's clothing so that the dog team could get a scent and that would get them on the right track. In fact, it's just odd to me that Debbie's never said anything about this. She's never expressed disappointment, surprise that the dogs never found a scent or anything. And I would have thought that she would, either at the time or later, have talked about this. Because it's just one of those odd things. We don't really know what happened. Well, we know that the dogs never did find that scent. They never did start following a scent at all. Um, and I don't think Debbie's ever talked about that. Um, I guess it's all somehow in that 600-page report, that she translated. She's got all the facts, but never told us. So that's why we keep speculating. Um, Now, going back to when she went to the apartment, so I'm not 100% aware of this, Jan. Are you saying when she landed, the first thing she did, I mean, she got that message, and then she went to Jay's apartment, yeah?
Yes, and that's coming from her own words. It's in one of the shorts that I put up this week. And I'm not sure which one it was, whether it was Sky or whoever. But yeah, she was going over the fact right from the very beginning. And she said that when her and, what's his name, Zach, got off the plane, they went to the apartments. And at that point, I thought, well, did the police meet you off the plane? Did you go to the police station first to find out what was happening? It just seemed, as usual, there's huge gaps in the story. And I was like, well, what did you do? And she then carried on by saying, oh, it was just awful. And we just went back to the apartment and of course, told us nothing. But what I found peculiar was that, I mean, Duncan, I can't remember whether at that time I've just had a thought. When she got there, maybe she hadn't already decided to get the dogs in. There's that possibility, I suppose. I can't remember the timeline. Was it because the dogs didn't come in until right at the end, did they?
You mean the Dutch team and the Dutch dogs? Yeah, I don't think that idea came to her, or well, she was contacted by someone that knew about this Dutch group, whoever that person was. I don't think that contact happened till quite a few days down the line because the expectation was that the Guardia Civil would get on the tracks and find something. So it was after 2 weeks when the Guardia Civil said they're basically giving up the search. And that's when Chris P said, you haven't searched well enough, I'm going to start. Um, so maybe it's about 2 weeks in, roughly when Debbie, heard about this group and decided to get in touch, and then they came on over. The other bizarre thing is that, according to our intrepid duo, the searchers, Chris actually found Jay's body on the Saturday. And the Dutch arrived on the Monday or the Sunday night and started searching on the Monday morning. I've never understood how, if Luggy and Chris knew that Jay had been found on the Saturday, how they just wait all day Sunday and don't tell Debbie. Uh, you know, the Dutch aren't needed. They wait all Sunday, and then on Monday they wait all Monday morning, and then everyone's like, "Oh, the Dutch have arrived, but Jay's been found." So Chris and Luggy are what? They're kind of giggling to themselves or something. It's just very strange, isn't it? That 2 day gap. I mean, in the normal world, I think if Chris has found Jay's remains, the first thing he does, make sure that is the case. He's in touch with the Guardia Civil. They say yes. And then he contacts Debbie, I would think, or he does something. He doesn't just wait. I don't know. That whole 2 day period is very odd, and the Dutch must have felt very strange about walking down that track, thinking they were, on search mode, and then they get a message that he's found. It must have been a very strange feeling for them.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I'm forgetting. I'm thinking, oh yeah, maybe she wouldn't have needed to get the clothes for the Dutch team. But of course, if the Guardia Civil were had a dog team, then why did she not hand the clothing over there? Over, as soon as she got there. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if she'd have said, "Well, when we got there, we were met at the gates by the police who were very sympathetic to us, and they took us to go and have a cup of tea, or they took us to the hotel, or they did the." There's none of that. There's nothing. It's like she just got off the plane with all the other holiday makers and found her way to Jay's apartment. It just does not make sense to me at all. So, okay, Dunks.
Yeah. Now, there's one more detail here that is also contradictory, and that is Lucy, was it 3 days in, giving her back to the camera interview, is quite adamant that she says that the police were never given any of Jay's clothing. When Lucy was going on her rant about how this is all going terribly. And my thought then was, well, if the police haven't been given an item of Jay's clothing to give to the dogs to smell, well, that's Debbie's fault. Debbie's been there since Tuesday. Why has that not happened? And it was this feeling that it's all very well blaming the police, but I don't get the feeling Debbie was insisting, here is Jay's clothes for your dogs. I don't know. There's another gap there. Who is to blame here if Lucy's right that the police and the dogs are on, Thursday still hanging around thinking, wonder if he'll show up. I don't know. I wish we could get that 600-page report, although something tells me this kind of thing might not be in there either. I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us as we keep going over it and going back to the beginning. But I think what happens is when you go back to the beginning, as indeed I've been doing, we're all doing actually. You have to start at the beginning. It's then that you realise just how many gaps there are, and not only are there gaps, but there's huge amounts of misinformation. So it's a bit like you're on like a minefield and you're trying to dodge all the bombs on there. It's insane. So, hi Raf, I hope you're well. Raf says the police would have taken things of Jay's from the apartment. Exactly. One would have thought that. Even if he was still down as a missing person, wouldn't they? And, as soon as they decided that they were going to be bringing in a dog team, wouldn't they have said to Brad or Lucy, well, let's the dogs get a scent of Jay's clothing. Otherwise, the dogs don't know what they're looking for. So it just, I don't know. It's something that I'm sure we're going to ponder for a long time. So let's move on to number two, which I think all these questions, there's only four of them this week, and it's all about the Dutch team, because I think, there's just so many questions about this particular aspect of the case. So the next question is, why was the Dutch team so invested in telling us how Jay died? Now, when I first read that question, Dunks, I was like, were they? Did we hear from the Dutch team how Jay died? I wasn't, I don't think I knew that. And also, how could the Dutch team say how he died when they didn't even discover him? I mean, okay, I'm going to pass this one over to you, Dunks.
Yeah, I didn't phrase that question very well. Um, I meant by it, why are the Dutch team, like Chris and Ivor, why are they insisting they know Jay died by accident? Because they're fully on board with this. He must have fallen, it must have been an accident. And again, it's not their position to say anything about that. I don't mind the Dutch team telling us, what they did and how their dogs work. Even, having gone down the ravine, some part of it, what their impression is. But when they flat out tell us that Jay must have died by accident, I get a bad, I get a very bad feeling. It's almost like they too are reading some kind of script, or they too have agreed to, go down this path because they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know. I mean, they're searchers. If it turned out, if I'm just saying, if it turned out, subsequently there was new evidence and it showed that that body was placed there, then I don't know. The Dutch are in trouble as well. You're out there saying you know how this person died and it didn't turn out that way. That really isn't your job. Um, and there was one of the team, I think he's the guy, the man. He even went down the whole thing about, well, if someone had wanted to get rid of Jay, they would have just buried him 100 meters away from the road. And I'm like, well, no, they obviously wouldn't because your dogs would have found him. The point is, Jay had to be found in a very, very inaccessible place. But I don't know. I think this Dutch team, if they wanted to convince us they were pure searchers and nothing else, they should have stuck to it's not our job to speculate on how he died. But they didn't. They went down the same path as Chris Ivor and everyone else. Um, I don't think they should have done that. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I kind of understood what the gist of the question was, but I just
Mm.
wasn't aware of what the Dutch team had said. We've got some really good question or points made in the chat this week that I really do want to speak on, but I think we should stick to the questions and then I'll come back to these points because some of these points are really good. So if you don't mind, guys, I'm just going to stick to get these questions out the way and then I'm going to come back and read some of your comments because they're really very good. So, question number 3 is why did Debbie Duncan leave it so late to call in the Dutch dog team? We have to realise that it was like the best part of a month before she called them in. What did she think that the Dutch team would do better than the Spanish dog teams as well? Two parts to that story. So, why do you think, Duncan, that she left it so late to call in the Dutch team?
Um, well, I guess she felt that the Guardia Civil were going to either find something or, let her know that there's no trace there. This is where I'm a little bit confused because I don't know how you felt at the time, but as each day was going by and there was not a hint, not a clue, nothing that suggested Jay had ever been there, I was thinking any day now, and I think Warren was going down this path. Any day now, Debbie and Warren are going to say, come on, he's not here, is he? Let's start to investigate from the people that knew him where he could be. And I even remember Warren at some point, it was reported that he told the police, he told them, look, just look at, that ravine and coming off this road. No one would go down there. So I think after 5, 6, 7 days, my feeling is that Warren was very much up for this is ridiculous. Um, and my feeling is Debbie wasn't. So why did she take so long? I guess because she had blind faith that either Jay would show up or, something would be discovered. I guess in the background, I'm not totally conspiratorial on this. I guess in the background, people are going to say she already knew he wasn't there, so it didn't really matter to her if they were going to spend 1 week or 2 weeks. If she knew uh, something else had happened to Jay. But I don't know. I guess my point with the question was that I didn't get the feeling that Warren wanted this to go on day after day without some other avenue being explored. And I think we were all played again. I think when the Guardia Civil were saying they are investigating the case, everything's on the table, we haven't discounted anything. I don't think that was true. To me, it seemed like they discounted any kind of investigation into Jay's friends and what they knew and what they could say. I don't think there was any investigation. Um, but yeah, why Debbie waited so long? I don't know. The skeptics will say because she knew he wasn't down there. It was up for the it's up to the Dutch to come and establish that. And I just one last point about that. I think there was fear from the likes of Chris and Luggy and the Guardia Civil and all of them. I think there was the fear that the Dutch might show up and confirm that. I think the fear was the Dutch are going to spend 24 hours here and say, this boy was never here. That was the fear. If the Dutch say, look, our dogs are good at this boy was never here, then you've got the Guardia Civil looking bad. You got Chris and Luggy looking bad. I think that was the fear, and that's where we get this, conspiracy theory, if you like, saying, isn't it strange the Dutch turn up and then Jay is found just before the Dutch could say, "You damn fools! Why have you been looking around here? There's never been this boy down here." Didn't happen that way. I don't know. Again, this question about why did Debbie leave it so late is trying to get into the mind of Debbie, and that mind to me has become so complex and convoluted. I've basically given up trying to figure it out. So I leave it up to you, Jan, to keep going back and figuring out what what Debbie was thinking at any stage. It's very hard to figure out.
It's impossible to figure out. Absolutely, I have no idea. Yeah, but I think I'm going to go off track a little bit here, but I think it was you that said that it's interesting that we all noted their utter despair when on the documentary when Debbie was told what was actually inside her
Hmm.
son's body. The utter despair there. Was it linked to the possibility of her not receiving insurance? And when I was listening, I was like, why didn't I think of that? That is a possibility. Everything is a possibility. And that's why it's important that we keep looking. So, question number 4 is, why would DD initially not trust an accredited search team? Now, I put underneath here, Mariette, is it? This woman confessed that Jay's family didn't trust us straight away because of all the social media buzz surrounding his disappearance. However, after a chat with Jay's mum Debbie, volunteers from Sydney jetted off to Tenerife to aid in the search with their trained dogs. Now, that to me, that's what I based this question on. Why would she not trust them? Why? If they're a well known team, if they're. I mean, luckily, we've got companies and teams, international teams that will go and help people in trouble, whether it's like in Brazil, whether it's in America, everywhere, worldwide, global. So why would Debbie not trust this team? And I think you've touched on it there, Dunks. I personally think she was frightened that they would expose the truth. That's what I think. Over to you, Dunks.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was apprehension here because again, there's a certain outcome that Debbie doesn't want, she wants to avoid. And that would be the implication there is foul play, or this search hasn't, should never have happened in this area. Something else has happened here. I mean, I'm again speculating, knowing what we know now, but I have a feeling Debbie's apprehension was that this Dutch team might come to conclusions that look very ugly for what actually happened to Jay. So maybe this conversation that they had that allayed Debbie's fears was along the lines of, if to us it looks like this must have been an accident and this was the area where he died, we're going to say that we're all on the same side here. It hints that they had a conversation and agreed on some kind of approach here, but initially I kind of get Debbie's reaction here, because if the Dutch do conclude something that is pretty darn ugly, I mean, they could have gone the other way. They could have said, no one's been down here, you don't need dogs, you need detectives to figure out where the boy went after the nightclub, and it's not down here. If that had happened, I think Debbie would have been in that awful position of having to say, okay, so now we need a real investigation to find out what was going on. She didn't, it's clear to me, Jan, Debbie never ever wanted the detailed investigation that would explain what happened to Jay, because it all involves Jay's friends and it involves the people for some reason Debbie doesn't want to get involved. Yeah. Um, and I think in a way that's where things went wrong with Mark Williams Thomas, because Mark Williams Thomas was, interviewing all these kids and saying, yeah, there's narco stuff in the background and there's an underworld. And I think at that point Debbie was like, okay, well, we'll let Mark Williams Thomas do his thing, but I'm not gonna back him that much. Um, I don't know. That's my explanation, Jan. I would imagine Debbie was apprehensive the Dutch might not come out and say what she wanted them to say. They had a conversation, and turned out they were fine with what Debbie was looking at, what Debbie was thinking, what Debbie wanted. Just a guess. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think I'm just a bit. I tend to think that it was because she knew, obviously, that the Spanish weren't doing a very good job. I mean, I can't get out of my head the fact that she didn't, I'm guessing, she didn't give Jay's clothing to the police dogs. Yeah, I just can't. And the thing is, because of the way Debbie is and has been shown to be, she gives no answers. I mean, she may just as well be sat there talking in German. I mean, nobody would understand her apart from you, Dunks. But it's just insane. I've never. Lee Evans used to do a joke where he says every time his wife opens her mouth, all he can hear is like that. And that's what happens with Debbie. Every time she opens her mouth, nothing comes out. Absolutely nothing comes out. So, okay, so that's the end of the questions for this week. How far in are we? Okay, so we've got a little bit of time. Duncan, I don't know whether you want to talk about something else, or shall I go through some of the comments that we've had, because some of them have been really good, and they've been sort of focusing on different things, not just about the dogs. So, Claire, hi Claire, I hope you're well. I know I have some emails that I need to check out. Honestly, I've just been so busy at the time, and there's certain things that I do need to concentrate on. But I will get to your emails. So Clara said, Jan, there were 3 bodies found at similar times. Jay, Juan, the man in the tunnel, and an unidentified Caucasian male. Was this round about the same time as Jay Slater? I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Duncan? I mean, I remember at the very beginning the story of the tunnel. I remember that, where it was, I remember people saying that there was a bum bag that was found down the tunnel, and was it that Jay had got out then, or was it that Brad had got out because he needed to do a wee? I don't know. I don't know much about this. Dunks, have you heard anything about these three bodies?
Um, Juan, I remember, he was in his 40s. Yeah, disappeared, I guess, after Jay, but maybe they overlapped at some point. Because there was speculation that, if they needed a body just to be sent back to the UK, why not Juan's if we can't find Jay? But I think the tunnel referred to there is that there was a Belgian guy that his burnt body was found in a tunnel not close to, the search site, but other side of the island, I think, or the Adeje area. The other Caucasian male, I'm not sure about. Um, yeah, I mean, I've just been sent a few more reports of other people recently that have been found. One German lady the other day found dead near the Mirador up there. So it does happen. I think with the Jay Slater case, it's very easy to think some other body, some other person might be caught up in this, might be involved. I don't know. I think we've got enough complications with just figuring out how Jay got there. um and then when we start bringing other people in, it just gets way too complex. Yeah, I don't know. I rather think those other cases are unrelated, but the Juan one, I do remember thinking, oh my God, this is, there's quite an overlap here. This guy too, missing in the same area. And yeah, it's a place you don't want to go missing in. Just tell you that much.
It's a place I don't want to go to. Period, as they say. So Cortser says, what I don't understand is how Jay was found on a ledge rather than in bushes. I didn't think he was found on a ledge. I thought he was found in a dip, wasn't he? Dunks.
Um, well, yeah, kind of at the bottom of that slope. I mean, he wasn't right at the bottom in the dried riverbed. I mean, I think his bag was possibly on the ledge. It must have been caught on something because it was stuck higher up. Jay's body, I think, was just on the slope, that lower slope. Um, what's baffling about this is that we were led to believe, I think, that Jay wasn't visible because he must have fallen, or he must have ended up, in the thick vegetation somehow. Because I remember Chris Pennington saying we're not using drones because drones can't see through the vegetation. And I assumed he meant Jay's body is probably there where you can't see it. If he's fallen, deep into vegetation. That's why we were all surprised, I think, when we saw the photo of where the body was actually found. We're like, well, that's open ground, and it's quite open in the sense of accessible to. It looks accessible to drones and helicopters. I am going to voice a concern here about that photo because I can't picture, I can't picture where it is. Still, I've looked at it a lot. You've got this ravine that is tapering off, and Guardia Civil put an arrow saying towards the sea. I get that. But then at the end of it, there's like another cliff. So you can't see the sea. I guess the sea must be beyond that. And yet, I don't know. It looks like it could be another ravine. It just it doesn't look like what we were told where Jay went, where the body was. It's all very odd. But I mean, you must have had the same reaction, Jan, when you saw that photo, didn't you think, well, if he's lying there, and I mean, it's a human body. It's a human body. It's not small, If he's lying there, how was it not for 28 days? How was that not spotted? I just don't get that.
Yeah, and also, the birds the birds of prey. I mean, for God's sake, we all learn about those. You know, if we have an interest in wildlife, which I have, I watch a lot of wildlife programs. And you know, the first sign of any death, those birds of prey are going to be over it. And I can't see how Tenerife is a place that has no birds. Who would have spotted that? Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. My head's all over the place now. Dunks, we've got 20 minutes left. Do you want to talk about more about your trip? Or shall we? I mean, there's something that's sort of niggling away at me at the moment, and it's something that I spoke on, or Debbie spoke on, and I did do a little bit of investigation into, which was that even Debbie said that they did not identify the body because the body. And I hate talking about this because this is a young guy, but anyway, she referred to him as his remains. Now, if somebody has said to me, someone's remains, it means that it is not a body as such, okay? It's the remains. It's like if somebody has a car accident, you know, on the road, there, right? I'm not going to walk down and say, oh my God, I saw this guy's remains on the road. Do you know what I mean? When somebody says the word remains, it means, I mean, if you want to put it in its pure form, it means the remains of something. Now, for her to call her own son who has died, to actually describe him as finding his remains. The police came and told her that they had his remains. That's what she said. So, why? I can't understand, okay? I cannot understand how she would then not want to identify the body. Is it because the body was, as I've read, in such a, you know, a decomposed state, that, you know, they didn't want the parents to view it? Was that really the case? Or was he, I mean, what was the state of his body? That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to be macabre. It's horrible. It's difficult for me to talk about. But it's just her terminology at that point that made me think, so it was remains. And also, it says categorically, she said it, his remains were found. The police found his remains with his clothing and with his bag and phone. What? The phone was on him, the phone was in his bag. I don't know any young man that would carry their phone in a bag. I don't know anybody like that. Now, it goes back to, well, what was he wearing then? Was he wearing shorts? Maybe he was wearing shorts so he couldn't put the phone in his pocket. That could only be, in my mind, that could be the only reason why perhaps his phone was in the bag. So, according to them, if we go along with that theory, right, where he's had an accident, okay, so he's fallen all the way down, right, fully clothed, right, with his bag over his shoulder and his phone in his bag or in his pockets, and he's landed without his clothes. His clothes have all come off him. His bag, as you just said, Dunks, is somewhere up, somewhere else. We know for a fact that the phone pinged somewhere else, and the phone, I mean, where was that? It's like, it's just so unbelievable. I cannot understand anyone feeling that there are no questions to be asked about that. And it's absolutely disgusting that that inquest was allowed to go through. Absolutely. I've been reading up about it and I'm just horrified by it, Dunks. So, what do you say about that? I know I've waffled a bit, but just speaking on the way Debbie's terminology. Okay, she's not the most articulate woman in the world, but there's certain things that you would say. I just cannot understand her using that word instead of saying my son's body. Whether it was in a state of decomposition or whatever, I just cannot understand that. So take it away, Dunks. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's just another massive, massive mystery. It is very macabre. People don't like talking about this, and that's why we haven't explored it. We might as well do that tonight. I mean, I don't hold back, so I'll go for it. If these are remains, what exactly are the remains there? I mean, if we're talking about the face, is there enough of Jay's head, face that's left for it to be identified? This is the point. And we were never told this. I never really understood if the Spanish were telling Debbie there is nothing enough left, some scraps of flesh, some bones, but there's nothing to identify. You're not going to look at what's left and say that's Jay. Or if the Spanish were saying, we so strongly advise you not to look at this, it's so horrific, that we're basically saying no. But we've had this conversation before. It's like, I don't think anywhere in the world can refuse the parents to say, we insist on now looking at what is there, whatever the remains are. I mean, that's simply not possible. So I assumed that, yes, there was enough of Jay's remains for him to be identified. And Debbie and Warren, under strong advice, chose not to do that. But so many people have told me whatever, the horror of looking at the remains would be, that they would have to do it just because they couldn't live with themselves the rest of their life saying, I never had that last look. So again, this is all very mysterious, but it's a good point you make about what exactly does remains mean. If we had been told Jay's body, I think we all imagine it's pretty much intact. Like you said, after a car accident, there's the body. Remains could be anything from just bones, scraps of flesh, but presumably there was enough there for Jay to be identified. And we got the other mystery about these, Debbie saying waiting for the repatriation of some other body parts. What I don't think we ever found out if those were repatriated. We never found out what those were. All a big, all a big mystery. Um, I don't know. Everyone has in their mind their own thing. I imagined, and we'll just finish off the macabre part of it. I imagined that a lot of Jay had, dissolved into mush, but facially there was something there. Warren, I think, didn't we hear Warren would said something like, "I can identify a scar if that's there," but I would have imagined the surface skin would have gone by then. I don't know. It's an ugly, very ugly subject, but if there was nothing enough to identify, I'm not sure why that option was kind of put out there by the Spanish and then told, but you're not going to be able to identify them, or it's not going to be a good idea. I just wish we, again, had some kind of clue what the truth was here. Don't know.
Right, so I did this the other day because, I like to think that I'm not giving out any misinformation. I like to do a bit of studying. Now, the problem is in this day and age, we've got Mr. AI, okay, who likes to tell us information. Now, where does Mr. AI get all his information from? Let's have a guess, shall we? Right, so I put in what was the state of Jay Slater's body, okay? So AI says Jay Slater died instantly from severe, non-survivable head injuries consistent with a 25-metre fall into a steep, rocky ravine in Tenerife. His body was found 29 days later, showing significant decomposition and mummification due to the heat. There were no signs of third party involvement or struggle. Okay, so I'm thinking, where have they got that from? Where have they got that from? Maybe they watched the video. Maybe they watched the documentary. So, condition of remains. Due to exposure in a hot environment for 29 days, the body exhibited extensive decomposition and mummification, as reported by, wait for it, the Mirror and the Manchester Evening News. Toxicology. Tests revealed traces of alcohol, just traces, guys, MDMA and cocaine, as reported by The Guardian and the Sky News. So, when people are quoting you this information, I know that some people do like to quote AI. We should always be aware that AI is not always right. AI is not always right. So if we dig a little deeper here, do we need to? Right, I don't understand. Right, it says his body was discovered in a steep, inaccessible area. Was it though? Was it? And again, it's going over the toxicology and everything. Now, I don't understand, because it's something that I don't really like to sort of look at. I don't understand what mummification is. So is it the same as decomposition? I don't know. And I know it's a horrible subject to be talking about, especially when we've got this young lad's face on here. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't be reading off all AI, okay, as some sort of definition of truth, especially in this case, because we now know that AI is actually working off of, or it's taking information from mainstream media. Okay, so I think people need to be aware of that. So, Dunks, do you want to talk more on it, or do you want to talk about something entirely different before we wind up?
I think this is an important point that it seems to me that what you've shown there is AI basically regurgitating what we heard Adderley say, what was said at the inquest, and therefore what the mainstream media reported from the inquest. I don't think AI is going to throw up any great alternative to this, because AI is not part of our conversation. It's just, it's scouring what has been written out there. It's looking at the sources and compiling what it thinks is the correct narrative. And as far as what has been said by the coroner, I mean, that is correct. But a lot of us don't really understand how the mummification and the decomposition both happen at the same time. I've had someone explain it to me in that the body on the inside can be heavily decomposed. Organs are being consumed and what have you. But on the exterior, you've got this drying out process where the skin just looks like, it's tightened, it's leathery, it's preserved. The outside, I mean, you've seen Egyptian mummy. Well, maybe you haven't. Egyptian mummies just look like someone that's been out in the sun way too long. It's shriveled. The skin is very taut, but you still have the human form and the shape, and inside is the decomposition. That's the best it's been explained to me, because on the surface, when someone says this body is both mummified and decomposed, I think we all imagine, well, it's decomposed, so it's mush, but it's mummified, so it still has a human look. It doesn't seem to go together. And lo and behold, Adderley did not, of course, do a good job explaining that. It seems to me he used both terms, advanced state of decomposition, when he was saying how difficult it was to, get these results, heavily decomposed. And yet, because he was also implying that we could get the thumbprints and all that, that it was mummified. It sounded to me he was trying to have the best of both worlds. I mean, maybe the best of both worlds is possible, but again, I just don't see it. I mean, that ravine is full of wildlife, 28 days, and I think I mentioned this previously, Jan. I don't understand how Adderley or Shepherd consider themselves qualified to talk about this. I mean, Adderley works in Lancashire. How many mummified bodies has he seen when he says this is what I'd expect? I just don't get this. Believe me, this is how it should be. So AI is just, quoting what Adderley said. If it had been a totally different coroner with a totally different view, and experts disagree, it's not like Adderley must be right. I'm sure AI would come out with what some other coroner said if it had been challenged. But we're stuck. This is why the inquest was a bloody pain, actually, because we're stuck with it. And even though people have looked into, a second inquest or a second coroner, I think the reality is you'd have to have some really startling new evidence or a complete change of heart from Debbie. I don't see that either's going to happen in the next few days. We're just stuck with what Adderley said, and that's the verdict.
Yeah, so I've actually put in what is mummification, okay? So mummification is a state of preservation where a deceased body's soft tissues, such as skin, muscle, and organs, dry out rather than decaying. This process, known as dissection, typically turns the skin dark, hard, and leathery, okay? Right, now the bit that I want to point out is all of a sudden I saw here, right, under natural mummification, it says heat and aridity. In hot, dry climates like deserts, moisture evaporates quickly, making the body inhospitable to the bacteria that causes rot. This is what occurred in the case of Jay Slater. Due to the intense sun in Tenerife. Wrong. Wrong. And this is why our fight is so hard, Dunks, because mainstream media are the people that are putting out this misinformation. This didn't happen to Jay Slater. Sorry to shout, Dunks, but it just pisses me off that, and then you've got the likes of, who, who say, oh yes, well, they said on AI that this happened and that happened and this happened and that. We know it's all tosh, and we're going to prove it. We're going to prove it. So, yeah. I'll get off my high horse. But it just shows you that even, I'm surprised. When I looked at that and I saw that Jay's name was on there, I was like, I do not believe this. I do not believe this. It's just insane. So we're now going to move over to something else that we do. It's going to be slightly different this week if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. Probably not, because I'm hithering and dithering today. Bear with me, Dunks. Just bear with me. Because I want to do this a bit differently, because there are some people that actually do want to be named, and no, you will be named when I'm good and ready and in the way I want to do it. Okay, and today I thought we'd do it as we're both being teachers, Dunks. I thought that can be you, all right? That's you on the right hand side, all right? You're writing this up. These are the people, okay? It's still troll of the week, but it's slightly different, okay? These are the people that we are dealing with. These are the people that are referring to AI in their explanations of what happened when we know for a fact that none of it did happen. Okay, these are the people. So, Dunks, what do you have to say, honey?
Oh, I mean, if we were to talk about all of these individually, it would be another 2 or 3 hours. I've done my very, very best inviting any one of them, all of them, just to prove they have a voice, that they're really human, because I'm beginning to think they are not. We have this out there that, why would we ever want to talk to Duncan? It'd be a waste of time. Um, I don't know. I'm at the point where I've said, if you just want to give us your view, I won't be debating you. I will just do the Zoom call and I'll say on the count of three, we're recording, you speak for 5 minutes, and that's it. Just give us your point of view. I'm at the point of letting them say whatever they want to say, just to convince our side that these are human beings. And not one of them, I would have thought that someone would have said, yeah, I would like to do that. I've always been, willing to talk to the other side, to state our position unopposed. But again, not one of them will do it. And I just want to say, Jan, when you do what we do, you put your face out there, you put your voice out there, you say different stuff. Isn't it so easy to be one of those critics that doesn't challenge you in the same way? They just sit back and write. They can criticize what you look like, they can criticize what you sound like, they can criticize what you're wearing, they can do all that. When you give them the opportunity to do the same, no, 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 that's not going to happen. It's a very cozy world of just being able to sit back and write words that are 100% critical. And this is what we have with these people. I've got to say, Jan, I am very, very harsh, and I do go on to, for example, Thomas Wilson's page there, and I am very, very harsh with these people because I'm not convinced, A, they are human beings, or B, they are the human beings they claim to be. And so when you get this, God, Duncan is foul-mouthed or, insensitive, this, that, and the other. All I'm trying to say is then come and say something to me. But just writing the same nonsense over and over every week isn't going to convince me that these are real people. Um, if they are real people, Jan, they spend an enormous amount of time dissecting what we say. God knows what their jobs are or what they do outside of this. I mean, my defense is I'm basically retired and I do have a lot of time to dedicate to this. But we have the likes of Gobshite in Glasgow that keeps telling us, about her kid. And I'm like, well, when do you ever spend any time with the kid? I don't get that. With in between your counselling and going to the solicitor and writing to Police Scotland, and where do you find time to be a normal human? So my line on this, Jan, is with the trolls. I think you've proven that we are human beings. We make mistakes. We get on rants. But who are these people? We have no idea. Are they people?
It's would be very easy to assume they were bots and just really hateful bots because it's just. I remember months ago you used to talk about these people, and I'd be like, oh, I can't be asked with all that. I'll just stick with what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden they started using my name, and I don't know whether it was when I started talking to you or they realised that I talked to you. I don't know when it was. But all of a sudden I was the worst thing that ever walked the planet. And I'm like, what? So I decided it's like in life, I've had You know, I've had professions where I have had to speak to certain types of people, and I will do it in my profession. Okay, I've had a profession where I've had to work with, teenage boys who are like little shits, but I will do it in my profession. But as a YouTuber, I am not held accountable to you how I am online, okay? I'm a very straightforward type of person. I'm a bit leery. I can be a bit silly. That's me. If you don't like it, then okay, don't like it. Don't click on the video. It's plain and simple. And if it was just a case of them not liking us dunks, I think, then, that'd be fair enough. You just say, all right, we don't bother, love. Do you know what I mean? I'll block you and then you don't have to appear, do you? But it goes beyond that. And in the video
Mm.
I did in the week, and I showed that I think it was either Luggy or Thomas Wilson wrote the most disgusting piece on my family. It's absolutely disgusting, and I don't want to get upset about it because I don't want to give them any credit to how their rotten, stinking words have an effect on me, okay? But one thing I will say is that I will never, ever, ever have any form of communication with them. And I know, Dunks, you quite like to jump in there sometimes and wrestle around in the mud. That's up to you, honey. You go ahead. But I'm not doing it because to me, they are scum. They are the lowest of the low. And the worst thing they ever did was accuse me of hurting my disabled granddaughter. Mistake! Mistake! As in the film Pretty Woman. Mistake! Huge mistake! Because I am a mama bear and you won't get away with that. That is disgusting what they said about me and my granddaughter and my daughter. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Yeah, it's a strange situation how they have turned on people like you and then some of the commenters and the followers that are, supportive of what we do. Um, I think it might be that they are running out of road in the sense that they've hammered me and Wax at times and Marvin at times and Ali Harris at times. They've had a few, you know, solid months of whacking away at us. And this is what I said to Thomas Wilson. I said, I can only guess that you're doing all this because you're hoping to change in some way my behavior. Yeah, you're hoping to change something here. Because what I don't understand is when there's no change, when I'm doing what I have been doing month after month, and like you say, wrestling in the mud and all that, if there's no change, then what's the point? You're just doing it for fun. Maybe they do it for fun. It's a very cruel sense of humor, but maybe they are doing it for fun. But I think when they realize there's no real change of behavior, then they start looking for others, and that's why I think Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Smith's family are now being put under the spotlight. And of course, anything that can be found and turned into anything scandalous or that's going to be put up there. They're all going to pat each other on the back and say, "Look what you found about the family of the commenter, of the content creator." I mean, if that's the way they want to go, then I don't see where there's any solution for them. Like I say, the road just runs out. You've picked on everyone. No one's changed their behavior. It's still going on as well. So what do you do then? If we are the trolls, Jan, you would have thought that we would, I don't know, stop trolling in their eyes. But if we don't stop trolling, at what point do they understand that what they're doing isn't changing anything? So we're stuck with the notion that if these are human beings, they just like to have fun. A long time ago, Jan, when Kaz Alice was active, I said to Kaz Alice, I said, you know all these people, you know Luggy personally. You seem to be key in who says what here. I said, come up with some rules, because I'll abide but with it. If we have an agreement that the two sides do not mention the children of anyone involved, it's a simple rule, You don't mention them, is nothing at all. I think we'd all agree that's fine. But it is the other side said, no, no, it's gloves off. The gloves are off. That was their decision. Now, once the gloves are off, you cannot expect the likes of us to keep fighting with the gloves on. If the gloves are off, the gloves are off, and that's why I do get down and dirty and nasty, because the gloves are off. But I just want to make sure everyone knows that when I said to Gazalis, I said, you come up with the rules. You'll find that our side will agree. Let's take certain people out of this. If we're going to make it personal, it is actually personal. Say anything you want about me. I'll say anything I want about you. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it, Jan. So my assumption then is it's all for fun. That's their idea of fun, is, talking bad about others and pointing fingers and having a good laugh about it. That's what we're stuck with. But they're an odd bunch. If they're human, they're a very odd bunch.
Well, they're playing a very dangerous game because, as most people, have realised, most people that are in our little community have realised, if they were truly there because they cared about this 19-year-old boy, why would it matter that there were people that saw it from a different way? Why would they then feel that they're just going to attack content creators? It doesn't make sense. And I mean, as I said, it would be all well and good if they came on and said, oh, Jan's this, Jan's gobby. Thanks, Dunks. Jan's gobby, Duncan's this, Wax is this. That's all well and good, do that. But the things that they've actually done are criminal things. And if they think I'm going to take that, if they think that I'm going to let those foul individuals speak ill of my family who have been through enough trauma, then they can think again. Just no, it's not going to happen. Okay, so they can try and twist our words as much as they like. I will forever be putting their names up there because, guys, if you ever do come across these people, just be very, very careful. I've got them all blocked on my YouTube. I don't want them on my YouTube, and I will be speaking about them. But this is about Jay Slater. The most important thing is Jay Slater, not these hateful individuals. Okay. So, Dunks, have you got anything else you want to say? And if you want to say bye-bye to everybody, okay.
Yeah, just one last thing to wrap this side of it up. I mean, I would say those in the UK do need to be very careful everyone. I'm talking about the whole population these days. Do need to be very careful what they say online. It is possible that, for example, in your case, Jan, you receive this, horrendous short or video or post about you, and you can respond in like manner. And in the UK, who knows? It may be that the person that is responding or retaliating gets in trouble. My message is just be careful in the UK how you handle this. Like you said, Jan, keep reporting it. It is very, very hard to pass that bar. And I mean by that it can be in law criminal what these people have done and what they have said. You can read the definition of malicious communications. You can read the definition of harassment. And I've done this. I've spoken to police in the UK, and they've agreed that as the law is written, they call them suspects. These suspects seem to have, broken the law. However, the reality is, in order to get, charges brought, in order to get a conviction and all of that, the police know that it has to pass, you're talking about judge and jury, a very high bar. So often they keep these reports And they're looking for, a totality, if you like, that might pass that bar. So you're never wasting your time when you submit a report. And in the case of Thomas Wilson, he did dedicate, his channel was removed. He did dedicate his whole channel, it seemed, to abusing me and who he thought was my family. Doctoring photos. So he takes a picture of someone and puts my head on top. I've never done that. I would never do that. But he did that with, all kinds of people associated with me in his mind. Now, the police will agree that that is, a form of harassment and malicious communication. However, there's all kind of steps they have to prove it's him. With hiding behind VPNs and all this. There's a long process, but it is worth pursuing because in the end, you only want one of these people to actually get arrested, and I think the whole lot of them will disappear. You know what I mean? And that is why you don't just say, it's a waste of time. You pursue it. It is very hard. It is very hard. The police are not, it's not at the top of their list to deal with this. Um, but I firmly believe if one of them gets actually charged, the rest of them will just disappear. But yeah, be very, very careful in the UK. Hurty words. It depends. You get the wrong police officer with the wrong interpretation, and they can get on the case of the wrong person. So yeah, UK people, be careful, be resolute, but maybe don't reply in kind the way I do. Should we leave it like that, Jan? And I will say good night and goodbye, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate all the comments. And if you're okay and if you have the time, Jan, I'm free next week. I don't think any problem with next week. Do you think you're okay for next? Well, it depends on your family member calling you half an hour beforehand saying, let's talk about this. But in theory, you're okay for next week.
Yeah, I'm okay for next Sunday. I'm sure she does it on purpose, She does it every bloody Sunday. It's so annoying. And she's like, oh, I forgot, Mum. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so getting back to these, yeah, I think a lot of it depends on who your police force is. And whether you've got a
Yeah.
big police force. I'm lucky. My area has actually got a big police force, and it didn't take any persuading for them to accept that these people are creating or are doing a crime. Now, I have heard from other people who've said, oh, well, my cop, they're not interested in it. Well, then you have to keep pushing because there is a law, okay? It is lawful what these people are doing, especially when they are doxing. Doxing is actually against the law now. It's just about pushing it. Speak to the head of police. If Mr. Plod, who happens to come round to your house, doesn't seem convinced, then make sure you phone the police station and ask to have an appointment with someone a bit higher up. Be polite. There's no need to be rude, and just say, look, I really am convinced that these people are doing criminal stuff to me. And yeah, keep pushing it, guys. It's like anything in this life. Sadly, if you want anything done, you got to push for it. So, Dunks, I want to say thank you, darling, for coming. Absolutely wonderful to see you again. Have a great week. Be productive. And I want to say bye-bye to all of you in the chat. You mods are wonderful. Thank you. Do you know, it's so nice not having to worry about these scumbags coming in. It's great. Thanks, guys. So you all have a wonderful week. Thank you so much to those that have chatted, those that are coming on the feedback. And you just take care of yourself, guys, because trust me, it's a rotten old world. So until the next time, bye-bye for now.